They say that crime don't pay. But sometimes I wonder if being honest really pays. Here's what old Betsy's looking like right now. Got the fender. At least I can still open that door. I was worried I couldn't open that sliding door. And the hole is busted. I'm trying to show you this, and I'm hoping that I'm doing justice because it's really hard to see the camera out here. And that is what it looks like. You know, what we do determines the kind of character we are. So when the guy hit me in the back, of course it stunned us. Yeah, I was looking at the ambulance and bam, it shocked me so bad I forgot to look in my rearview mirror and to see. Because it threw us up, it threw our heads, and then we hit the seat. And we were both okay, thank the Lord. Just really, we were shaking real bad. And, yeah, but his character proved what kind of man he was. Because as I was sitting there, we were just realizing what had happened to us. I seen him out of the corner of my eye, and I watched. And I said, well, he's pulling over. And so I said, well, I probably need to pull over too. And before, I could get my senses together to realize I needed to do this, I look, he's not pulling over. He's driving off. And as I seen him, I said, he's not pulling over. He's driving off. I've got to make a mental note of as much detail of him as I can. It was a black guy in a little white Mazda truck with brown stripes. And I said, and I thought to myself real quick, am I going to be able to remember his license tag? And I looked at his license tag, and he didn't have one. It was a piece of paper flipped up from the wind, but there was no license tag. And he just drove off. So that told me a lot about his character. We sat there and we waited for 30 minutes. I called 911. The lady that was behind him, it was her and her daughter. She was an off-duty deputy, detective. And so they ended up giving us their name and number, and so I would have it. Because, they would come out to check on us and make sure we were okay, and they couldn't believe he drove off. And that she was saying there's a camera down at the next light, so maybe they could see who he was. So anyway, they left, and we sat there. I pulled off side of the road. We sat there, and I called 911. They asked if we needed an ambulance, and I said no. And then, my friend was saying, well, we might need to get checked out. And I said, well, you can send an ambulance. And we never did get an ambulance. It was over 30 minutes later before we got a highway patrolman. And we're in town. I stay out in the country. I know that if I call, it's going to be 45 minutes before they get here. But I'm in town. And they didn't get no rush. And so when he finally came, it was a young man. He took all the paperwork. I had to tell him what happened. He said, now, tell me again in slow, because he said, I wasn't here. I've got to have a mental picture. And I told him what happened. And then Jane told him what happened. And he went to go to his car, and he turned. He said, y'all had your seatbelts on, right? And Jane said, yes. And I looked at him and said, no, I didn't. And he just turned and went to his car. And he was in the car for a long time. And finally come back, and I asked him about the cameras down the road, and he said I don't have access to them. He said, and they're really probably not going to give you any detail. So that was telling me he's not going to bother to be looking at them. He did talk to the police lady and her daughter to get more detail. But literally, this guy did something illegal. I stopped legally for a ambulance with its lights on, and he hits me and drives off illegally, and they're not going to do anything to him. They're not going to look for him. They're not going to go look. And I know it's hard to find a needle in a haystack, but if you've got cameras down the thing and you're not even going to bother to go look, is what why sense in having cameras except to ticket people and get more money. So anyway, he said, well, he brought the paperwork back. He said, as he going to go finish the paperwork, he said, I've got to give you a ticket for not having your seatbelt on. Can you believe that? I was honest. He didn't see me with no seatbelt. I could have lied and said, yeah, I had my seatbelt on, and I went and got a ticket. But because I was honest, I got charged $25. Yeah, I'm pretty upset at that point. You know, I've already having headaches. I don't think it was so much because I hit my head as the tension. I get stressed out. I get headaches. But here's this guy telling me that I'm getting a $25 ticket for not having my seatbelt on because some clown who's a jerk did not hit me, and I have to have the police report to put on my insurance because he's not covered so that I can hopefully get my van fixed and I get a $25 ticket. Yeah. I had a policeman I got stopped before now for not having a seatbelt. And then he told me, because I am claustrophobic, I cannot stand anything around my neck, and then you get that seatbelt and it's just, it would keep my mind, it keeps my mind off of driving more than it keeps my mind on let me drive. And that policeman told me, he said, you should go to the doctor and get a letter, and they'll, then you'll be okay when you get stopped. And so I told that boy, he said, yeah, he said, if you have a note, he said, definitely get it. He said, and I wouldn't have wrote you a ticket. So, honesty didn't pay, or does it? Well, I told the young man, I said, I was honest with you because I got to lay my head down at night and sleep. There's no little white lies, and there's no big white lies. There's no little black lies, and there's no big black lies. A lie is a lie is a lie. And before I stand before God, and when I stand before God, I want to stand before God and not be told any kind of lie. So when I laid my head down last night, I could lay it down and know that if the Lord called me, I was ready to go because I didn't lie. It cost me $25, and it's going to cost us in the van to get the van fixed. Poe Daniel, he was upset. I told him to call me when he was at work, when he got a chance, and I told him, I said, oh, we're okay. I said about the van, and he got upset because he said, who's going to have to pay for it? If the insurance don't pay for it, he's got to help pay for it. And I understand, bless his heart, I understand his point completely. But this, to me, showed this man's character. I hope and pray that my character doesn't act like that. If you do something, accidents happen. But if you do something, I hope that you're man enough or woman enough that you can admit it and take your poison. My little grandchildren, they get in trouble, they get punished. I do something wrong, I get punished. Sometimes it might be from the Lord, and if the Lord chastises you, oh my word, it's. If you've ever been punished by God, you know what I'm talking about. But when I got home, we never did make it to Cracker Barrel. Let me just tell you that, because we both were shaking. I mean, like this. I wanted to cry, and she said, well, go ahead. And I didn't want to cry in front of her, but finally I just covered my face and cried, and I said, I got to quit because the policeman's going to be here, and I don't want him to see me like this. And she said, why? I said, I don't want him to see me crying. I didn't want nobody to see me crying. I've cried enough in front of y'all. But, I just wanted to be able to control it. When I got home, I finally sat down and I just prayed. The Bible tells us to pray for those who do us harm or spitefully use us. But Paul, I'm thinking it was the coppersmith, but I could be wrong. I haven't looked it up. But I know the coppersmith had done him much harm. But there was one, and I'm not sure if it's the coppersmith or someone else, but anyway, Paul was saying, he was praying to the Lord, and he said, and I believe, like I said, I believe it was the coppersmith. He's done me much harm. Do to him what he's done to me. Treat him. In other words, he's praying to the Lord. Treat him as he's treated me, Lord. And so that's what I did when I got home. I said, Lord, treat him as he's treated me. The Bible tells us it is better for a milestone to be wrapped around your neck and thrown into outer darkness than to offend one of God's little ones. That man offended me yesterday, y'all. And I could have gouged his eyeballs out. Still could, because of his stupidity of driving off and making me pay for what he's done wrong. But I know vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I know God's going to take care of it. And the Bible tells us also, this world wants to live on. God's such a loving God. He is a loving God, but he's a judgmental God too. And it tells us that one day he's going to judge us. He's going to judge us for what we've done right. He's going to judge us for what we're done if we're doing, wrong. But the Bible talks about how awful it is to fall into an angry God. And God does get angry. You know what? I'm a mother lion. You mess with my babies, my little cubs, which are grown men, or a grown woman, and my little grandkids, and don't see if I don't want to rip you apart. And I might. I mean, I'm going to defend my children. If I love them that much, how much more does God love us? I know he loves that sinner, but that sinner's made his choice to be a sinner, where we have made our choice to follow God. And so it's a scary thing. I'm not talking about just a wreck. I'm talking about anything, to fall into the hands of a God that we've said no to. And now you've angered him, and the punishment that's going to come with that is really, it's scary. But it's just amazing how, this wreck has brought that to my mind. David had to constantly, he meditated, but he had to constantly go back and think on what the Lord has done for him, the good, the bad. Well, it's not bad, but how David had bad in his life, David had good in his life, and how God blessed David on both. And even us as Christians, we have to go back, and even in a bad wreck, when it happens, to see how God has blessed and kept his hand on us. And I do thank him that it was just, we got shook up, maybe a little headache from the stress, a lot of inconvenience, but God is still in control, and I thank him for that. And I thank him that I'm still here this morning when we went to church. My oldest little grandson, I think it was him, that said, thank God. They were all saying, thank God you didn't get killed. And they were thankful that I was still here. And I'm thankful I'm still here. And they were a little upset, thinking they weren't going to get to ride in Grandma's van no more. But Angie pulled the sliding door, and it did open. So I was worried that it wouldn't open, but it did. So thank the Lord. So anyway, we're safe, and let your character be a good character. If something happens that's out of your control and it's your fault, be the man or woman that you need to be, and take your medicine like you have to, but it'll work out. Good or bad, it'll work out. It just might take a little time sometimes. But anyway, I hope that this has encouraged you. You see that we're okay. Or I'm okay. Jane, I've talked to her. She's okay. But you see that we're okay. And I'll let you know about the insurance, because I don't know how that works. I'm 57. I've been in two. This is my third wreck. One, Randy was driving. The second one, Scott was driving. And this one, I was driving. But it was not my fault. So, thank God for that. Even though I got the $25 ticket. But anyway, y'all take care. And God bless.